You do it.
And he's fine, it's the chair, or if it's not trying to run position. Yeah. Excuses, right?
You've got your.
Look at that picture, huh?
Earlier today in that decent chair.
Yeah, somebody, Chad, you need to mute your audio, please.
Will do.
There you go. Ooh, your speakers too.
Mute those as well.
Yeah. There. No, I can still hear it. There we go. Chad, I like your improvised name tag.
See, I aim to fit in.
Whenever you're ready, Chad.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a privilege to be here. I apologize for how close I cut it, coming in 15 minutes before. I planned for a half an hour, and I thought for all the world that I had allowed enough travel time, but indeed I did not. We have a full 3 hours of work today. Our plan, we have 2 sessions scheduled. If we are expedient and smooth, we could get it done in one. That has not been my experience, but it remains a possibility. However, it is a rare opportunity to come together without the rest of the business of the city to really reflect on the council and your health as a team. And so I don't want to shorten that unduly. But I also deeply respect your time and want to make good use of it. So that's what I'll be balancing, in fact. I do have an introductory exercise, which some of the skeptics among you may regard as, how shall I put this politely, bovine fertilizer, a stupid consultant trick. It's not. It actually gets us thinking, gets us listening to one another. Then I want to share with you a summary of what I heard in my individual interviews with all of you and what I make of that. And that's not a rapport as much as a conversation. I reserve the right to be mistaken and still be of value. I'll make an assertion, and if you correct and adjust it, we'll learn from that. And that's absolutely an inbounds part of this process. I then want to share with you some thoughts on good governance and council leadership that, again, we can discuss. These are a collection of guidance that I've provided to many other cities in a similar setting. And does this work for you? And then slide into a discussion about what do we see, what is working well here as a council, and what could be working better. From there, we establish what could become shared commitments. They could be amendments to your bylaws. You can choose to instantiate, they could be an ordinance. I mean, whatever level you want to adopt them, the key is to create some shared commitments that you and future elected officials, by virtue of being on council, will agree to build on the strengths that you've identified and to address or mitigate the weaknesses that you've identified through the course of the process. And the next steps after that are, what do you need to help implement and maintain the agreements that you've created? And then that will conclude our work together. Is that consistent with all of your expectations? I've met with each of you one-on-one. I try to be really transparent, try to be really clear about what we're up to. That's all, everyone's.
Yep.
All right, good. I want to introduce some other, I call them guidelines for grown-up with tongue in cheek. I'm a guest in your house. It would be arrogant for me to propose standards for how we conduct ourselves. I'm not that arrogant. I'm moderately arrogant. I would ask you to instead accept these as a proposal. First of all, there's confidentiality expectations. This is an open meeting. If you have a duty to safeguard confidential information, honor that duty, and I will do the same. As I tell stories, please be assured that I have permission to tell every story I'm telling, or I've changed it enough that it is unrecognizable, but it's still in a sense true. I say this because some of these are difficult topics, and while this space is open, we want to speak candidly because this is our opportunity to do so. And I want you to know that I am honoring my duty not to tell tales about this meeting anywhere else. Been doing this work full time in Minnesota for 18 years. Minnesota is not a big community. If I was not honorable, I would be out of business. But I'm asking you to trust me that what I tell you, that what I hear here stays here as far as I am concerned, and the stories that I'm telling I have permission to tell. Any other thoughts about confidentiality? With respect to engagement, let's really try to be together. Keep our devices off. If we need a short break or short breaks, we can certainly take them. I think it's wise to do so in a 3-hour meeting, to at least take one short break, a little past the middle. But if you need anything else by way of engagement, please let me know. This is your time. Respectful candor. Candor is more than honesty. Honesty is the absence of falsehood and a commitment to avoid falsehood. Candor is a commitment to speak what we really believe, what's in our minds, what's in our hearts. Candor is a higher standard than honesty, and I'm going to ask for it because it's how we get to the bottom of and resolve some of our difficulties and challenges with one another. But that candor requires respect. I am only candid, truly candid with people from whom I sense respect. And so it's important that we maintain respect while we are being candid. Questions or comments about those? Thoughtful expediency. Expediency means if it's been said 4 times, we don't need to go for 5. Thoughtfulness means if we have something to add, let's add it. Let us err on the side of thoughtfulness. As facilitator, I may try to move us along in the name of expediency, but if I get it wrong, say so, and we'll stay on the topic. But I will be trying to make good use of your time and try to make sure that every voice is heard and balancing that throughout. That's thoughtful expediency. And comfort and fun are not up there because they're nice. This is a creative activity. We are taking a council that is good and seeking to make it really good or great. And that is important, but it doesn't have to be deadly serious. And we will be at our best if we are relaxed and comfortable. And so if I can do anything to make that happen, I will do it. I have a annoying penchant for dad jokes, which I can barely control. And so I will do my best, but no guarantees on that. Which takes us to our first activity. This looks like a stupid consultant trick. What I would like you to do is take the small sheet of white paper in front of you, and I would like you to write the name of an animal. If Credit River were an animal, what animal would it be? And we're gonna tape those cards up on the wall, and I'm gonna ask each person. We'll organize them by one means or another. And I'm gonna ask each person to tell us about that animal, about why they picked that animal. The story is more important than the animal. I know. Why are you paying me to do this? That's the question in your mind. Bear with me.
Doing this?
You're doing that.
Yep.
City of Credit River, so residents?
No, the
City
entity,
council?
the entity,
The entity.
Whatever, it doesn't matter, any part, right? The
any
whole
part
thing.
of it. And that comes out in the story. If you'd like to limit it to council, we can talk about that. If you'd like to make it about the government, the city government, if you want to make it about the community.
Where do you want
Right up with you just tape it up there. By the tape, please.
it? This where the paint comes off?
Hopefully not. I bought the good paint.
Good tape. We did use good paint too. That was quick.
Thank you.
It was obvious.
I can see that, yeah.
Oh.
Bill, there is no wrong answer to
There's
this.
no wrong answer, it's true.
If it's zebra, there's a problem. Okay.
It's a flaw, nice. Nice, you did, you did.
No wrong answer, Leroy.
Good.
Except that one.
You just gotta be able to tell a story behind it.
Okay. Not much.
Oh, why we have one more too many pieces of tape there. We're gonna let somebody from the audience for the last one?
I was just being cautious.
Oh, see, there is a right answer and wrong answer. He's gonna start to separate them now.
Yeah, birds of the bear's definitely a predator, but they're omnivorous. A bird could be a predator, could be prey. Chameleons get eaten, whether they like it or not, although they also eat insects. Grazer. Not a lot of predators in the group. That's interesting. Why did we pick a bear? Who picked the bear?
I picked bear.
Why bear?
I went because we're slow moving in the winter
Okay,
and as a staff, I went staff, we're tight knit as a staff. And then also, yeah, just kind of tight knit family oriented, stay together, kind of pack moving. And yeah, slow growing, slow moving.
good enough. The bird.
I did that one.
Is it flipping the bird or?
Could be. No. No, it just seems like, we just keep circling and we don't land. We just, everything's kind of just goes in a circle and don't make decisions real good, so. It's a bird.
We're flitting around, we're
Flying.
not landing, we're not making progress.
Yeah.
How about the chameleon?
So I did that one, more in the scheme of, we're trying to find our color, find our path, find our, what's gonna be, with so many different interests coming in, so much growth, different pieces, and we're working on trying to figure out what color we're gonna be.
Which is interesting because you ascribe to the chameleon an agency. We're deciding what color to be. A lot of people, when they pick a chameleon, see the chameleon as reactive. I'm just trying to fit in, I'm just trying to fit in. Whereas you see chameleon as a chooser, which is really interesting. A zebra.
It was actually kind of similar. Who are we? Are we a horse? Are we black? Are we white? There's a lot of different opinions. We're black, and there's the other side, we're white. So that's why I chose to see.
Very interesting. A sloth.
That was me. Two things. One, just how government works, very slow. So if you're impatient, like, can be, it's frustrating.
If you're used to a corporate governance structure where you can be more decisive and take risks differently.
Yeah. And then secondly, listening to residents, looking at the survey we did earlier this year. Our residents seem to want to go slow. They want to preserve what we have. So it made me think of an animal that goes slow, and sloths are kind of the slowest animal.
And yes, they're very similar, so slow, right? And in a sense, sometimes when you'd like to be more decisive, or you're feeling the frustration of a bird, that slothful character is frustrating, but it's also a virtue to some of the residents. Because you're moving deliberately and we're trying, in a sense, our vision is to slow down, to try to maintain our character to the greatest extent possible. So there's a virtue to slothfulness in this case too. Interesting. And a squirrel.
Some are hardworking. Some look for easy nuts. Some are annoying. Some are fun to watch. Some are smart. Some plan for winter. Some figure out how to get by.
Nice. So as a community, you see all of those things.
Yeah.
In us. Yeah.
In the community.
In the community. Terrific. So, as we think about that,
Well, I thought you were gonna pull a prize out of there.
Yeah.
then the winner is,
Right.
right, let's start by alienating 5 out of 6, right? What are the strengths that came out of that discussion?
Different perspectives.
But yet some similar concepts.
What are the similarities?
A lot of the perspectives of, again, to, like Abe and I had a similar, conversation about what color are we headed, what's interaction, who is Credit River at this point in its evolution. And I think that was kind of touched on by everybody had some piece of that in what they said.
That's right. So you're governing something that sometimes you would say it is neither fish nor fowl. What we would say is you're both, and could be more of either at any given time. The zebra, white, black, the bird flying around, but not so making progress. That's a frustrating piece, and maybe there's a frustrating element to the sloth too.
From the government perspective, not from tech, I'm not, the residents, I said the residents because they want to move slow. At least in my opinion, what I hear is that they don't want us to grow fast. They don't want us to become a large city. They'd like to preserve what we have today for as long as we can.
Other animals that have that preservational character. Squirrel, because you've sort of cast it as a little bit of everything. The bear, in a sense, too. Bears don't connote innovation as much as solidness, right? What other strengths do we see?
What do you see?
I see masters of our destiny in the stories. Even the chameleon, the exception being the bird, because it doesn't choose to land and do something. It flits around, but it could, right? And the others really are more determinate animals. What shortcomings do we see? I see frustration. What other shortcomings do we see?
Well, we kind of, actually, we have a split city with the north and the south side, with the different density, the potential sewer, and nothing down on this side, open areas.
It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
It's a real big challenge. Any other challenges that we see?
Challenges, potential city hall, public works building,
I mean,
so,
the fact that what we have is pretty basic right now,
yeah,
and if we wanted to build one that, well, so the challenge is you're starting from a very small resource base. And the building is just one example of that, right?
Yep.
it's like. People don't understand, we have the best right now. In terms of our cost structure, our operating efficiencies, it's only going to get, from a cost perspective, costs are gonna grow as we grow.
Yes, because there's only one place those resources realistically come from, and that's taxpayers. Right? Yeah. That's right. So that is a pro and a con, isn't it? Can we stay small? In a sustainable way? Can we stay small but still meet our community's demands for services on an ongoing basis? Those are real strategic questions.
So then to add to that struggle, then, based upon that, the city is growing, growth is happening. We can't stop that, right? We can't stop growth. Growth really depends on landowners and the market. Whenever there's, viable places to build, and if the economy is correct, a developer is going to find a spot. So that's going to happen.
All of this is consistent with a lot of what I heard. What I heard was that there is among all of you, a common love of this city. None of you are in this for your own political gains. None of you see this as a stepping stone to anything other than service in the community. You are where you are because you wanted to serve. Many of you, 3 of you, I think, wanted to serve the township and are now serving the city now that it's a city. The others are newcomers to city government, but relative newcomers. But what you have in common is that you love this place. And that was evident in the words, but it was evident in my conversations with each of you too. That's important to note because you differ sharply. I mean, you differed a little sharply about whether to turn on the live stream. I mean, you differ sharply. Some of the sharpness comes from a mutual love of the city. You both want to do what's right. You all want to do what's right. You have differing views about what's right. But that could be a cool disagreement, an intellectual disagreement, an academic disagreement. It's not. You care deeply about doing right for the city. So when you disagree, it's important to note that so does the other person. Care deeply about doing right for the city. It's something I, as a neutral observer, observed in all of you. Frankly, including Steve, who's hired to be of the city, but is just as committed. And that's really something. That's a special thing. You also have a common commitment to making good policy. And at the same time, while you have that common commitment, you differ sharply on a number of issues. And I would argue, I'm going to argue, that underlying those issues are some differences in, and to be very candid with you, I could not come up with the right word. It's not a philosophy difference. I said it's a difference in vision-ish, which is the best I could do after much consideration. I'm sorry about that, but that's what I got.
So you made new words.
I made
Get
a
it?
new
Did you
word.
call Webster's? Call Webster and get it put in the
I
dictionary?
think I need to do that now.
That main show.
Yeah.
And you do have a desire for respectful and constructive interactions, even when things get sharp. That's not what you want. You want, doesn't have to be all cool, but it needs to be respectful. Even if it's sharp, it needs to be respectful. And so, first of all, anyone quibble or disagree or think I'm missing anything major, we'll get into where the issue differences are and what the vision issue differences are in a moment. But at the highest level, honestly, candidly, is that right? Or do you say, I don't think all my colleagues are, I don't think that of my colleagues, or I don't think that of myself?
There's something I struggle with, because there's 2 perspectives. There's one that we're in charge, we make the policy, and we should consider what we think is right, or we should listen to what we're being told from our constituents who put us in this position. And I was just talking about this at the dinner table yesterday. What's right? Should we be just like, okay, we hear you, but we're gonna do it this way because that's the way we want to do it. what do you say when, what is the right answer for that? Cause I struggle with that.
It's funny, I actually have that in the presentation today to talk about.
Okay.
So we will get to it, because what I think is less important than what you all think, but that's you're right that that's a core question. And actually, I didn't identify it as a difference.
Yeah,
I didn't pull it out. I didn't catch that, but I think you're right.
cause I'm gonna be candid. I think
Please.
some people don't listen as much as other people
Sure.
to our residents.
And I think there is a time when elected officials listen and carry a message unaltered. There are times when elected officials listen and carry a message that changes when it interacts with the other views at the table. And there are times when an elected official persuades their constituents and says, no, I hear you, and this is why we are doing it this way. And there's a role for each of those things in leading as an elected official, in my opinion. That seem reasonable?
Yeah, that's important that you explain why.
Yeah. And we'll talk about all those things. I'm glad you brought that up. Other comments at this level?
I think that last bullet point, we've had some interactions that haven't been necessarily constructive or respectful, and I think there's just a level of something deeper that's caused that. So I think the desire is there, but I think there's something blocking the desire right now that we've got to get to the bottom of to figure out why we can't always be respectful and constructive.
Good. I'm gonna be interested if it's at the issue level, which I'm gonna get to in a second, or at the vision-ish level, or if there's something even deeper than that. That's a barrier to that, because I don't know. But I think it isn't just at the issue level, because these are the issues that I heard you differing on. The how, whether, when, and how to accept incoming water and sewer lines. The City Hall Public Works Building, whether to change this one, leave it as is, change this one, build a new government center. The execution of public works tasks, of all kinds, because we're doing it ad hoc with Mr. Schomer playing a central role right now. And then ditch 4. And this, these interviews were 6 or 8 weeks ago by now.
Yeah, a month and a half.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago. Are those the top level? Those are topics about which there are disagreements.
The other one I would add is that we're no longer a township, so we can't operate like a township where we're willy-nilly with things. In my opinion, we need to have rules, we need to have structure, when we're going out for services, we need to have multiple quotes. We can't just say, well, I've used him before and he's good, and we need to operate more like with rules in place as opposed to just doing things. And yes, that may cost us more money. But if we don't do that, I've been told there's the appearance of impropriety when we're not asking for multiple quotes from vendors, and that's just one example. I also think that when we were a township, and this is before I was on this at this table, we had delegation of duties. I mean, so I think Chris, you were in charge of the city building and city hall, and Brent was in charge of things, and Deaver was in charge of things and all that. We don't have that anymore. He's the CEO of the city. He takes policy direction from us, but he controls that. We don't have city council members, and we're not supposed to, at least my understanding, we're not supposed to go out and take it upon ourselves to do city business unless it's been authorized by the full city council. To me, that's, and I don't know how you write one word
I'll tell you,
issue.
it's on the next one.
Oh,
Prioritizing outcome versus process versus relationships.
Okay.
Was how I tried to write it. It's exactly, I think it's an essential difference. I agree. Yeah, I put that at the level of vision-ish. How do we see it? But you, that's exactly right. I also said in a township, it's kind of all hands. People have the freedom. I've worked through the Minnesota Association of Townships, work with multiple townships. And there's the democracy is direct and the work gets done ad hoc. And at the lowest possible cost to anybody. And however it needs to get done, it gets done. And you have incorporated as a city, and that, to your point, leads to the definition of greater goals. The other area, you have multiple views of development that came out a little bit here. We want to preserve what we have as long as we can, but growth is gonna happen, and market's gonna drive growth. I pulled out sort of 3 quotes from the interviews to represent differing views. I'm proud we don't have a gas station. Let's keep that as long as possible. The Met Council is coming. We should be driving it and not just stopping it at all costs. We should be more proactive, and then our neighbors will need sewers, and that goes to the, I think, Mr. Schomer, your point about the difference in the cities, right?
Yeah.
City.
The city, you're right, Freudian, Dr. Paging Dr. Freud on that one, exactly right, the city.
Back to kind of Bill's point of all of us deciding what to do and when to do it. Then on this 26 years with the township and the city now, it's kind of hard when someone calls up and they have an issue. And I can go resolve it in an hour, whether it's a plugged up culvert or whatever. I've always been doing it. And I'm supposed to say, we'll get it in 2 weeks at our next meeting. You're just gonna have to wait, your yard's gonna flood, whatever. But I tend to go out and do these things, so. I don't know. If we had a public works guy, he'd go do it. We don't.
And if I could just add something, Leroy. Because we don't have staff, I don't have issues with you doing that. I have issues with you doing that without being authorized to do it, so. In my opinion, it needs to come from. Steve's not your boss, but it needs to come from him saying, hey, Leroy, because we don't have staff. Could you do that? And we have a resolution that allows you to do that, but. The concern I have is when you go out there, because one resident complained about something. And you go ahead and do it, and you don't get authorization to do it, you just do it, and that's good, I'm not saying that's bad service, it's good service. But it makes. From the outside looking in, it's like you're creating work for yourself, because you do get paid. And there's a perception of impropriety when you're doing work, not being authorized to do the work, and getting paid to do the work. That's just the way it looks. And I was a CFO, and we had controls in place to prevent things like that. You had to be authorized to be able to do that work. You couldn't just do it and expect to get paid.
And I do contact Steve quite a bit on this stuff. 98% of the time, there's been a few occasions where I might have been a half a day late letting them know about it, but whatever, so.
And that becomes really the resource problem, right?
Yeah.
The discussion of resource, is the right resource that the city should have. If we're relying on the ad hoc piece, well, maybe there is a discussion to be had then about, do we need a resource for that?
And I'm not a proponent for that.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's the opportunity for the discussion, right? It's the, we know that there's these things happening out here. There's continued needs, there's needs that we haven't touched because we don't have a resource. And that's the discussion that needs to be had. I'm not saying right now, yes or no, I'm just saying that the discussion needs to be about the resource, what's available to Steve for tools to get his job done in a timely manner, and not relying on, Leroy to get a call and to make a decision whether he should do this or not right now, or is it something that needs to be delayed for council approval? And that's the piece that when, the discussion that needs to be had around that, and what are those needs? Right now, I think we probably all don't know what all the needs are.
The other piece is, it is unusual, even irregular, for an elected official to also be an employee or contractor to the city doing that work. And when we talked, I want to reinforce, this is not a profit deal. You are not benefiting net by doing this work. You are doing it out of the goodness of your heart and in the spirit of service. And that's really important to note because that intent is really clear. And at the same time, that just isn't how it's done generally because it does look irregular to an outside observer. And we'll talk about what the stakes of that are. It may be that you tolerate that in order to keep doing what you're doing and put a process in place and explicitly say, we know that this is unusual, but this is how we do it in Credit River, and this is how we're going to do it. Or it may be that you say we're going to do it differently as we grow as a city. I don't have a right and a wrong answer. You didn't pay me to bring that to you. You're the people who decide that. But it is unusual, and there are reasons it is. Is that fair to say? And do you feel comfortable with that, Mr.
Sure.
Shulman? All right. Now, Mr. Zanto, you raised the question, what gets us to tip over to the side of incivility or not constructive discourse? Is the hot button up on that screen or on the previous screen, or are there other hot buttons that get us there?
I think
You had the
this-
two big, yeah.
What's that?
I think it's this one that we're talking about right here. I think that's where we had some conflicts. I mean, all three of them, I would say ditch 4 was probably not as challenging of ones, but I think where it really got challenging to be respectful is when individuals were feeling accused of doing something correct or incorrect, I should say. Right, so thinking about this topic and what Leroy's doing, or thinking about when someone quit. I don't remember who it was now that I.
City clerk.
And there was some accusations thrown out there. I think the underlying issue in my mind is I feel like I'm being accused of something that I'm not doing, and therefore I'm going to fight back rather than just take it.
So things get hot when we go from a philosophical or visionish difference, like, look, I'm prioritizing an outcome. Let's get the ditch cleaned out as fast as possible at the lowest possible cost, which means me and hip waders, right? Versus a process that says, look, we are stewards of public money. We are stewards of public trust, which is the most precious commodity, rarest commodity in government right now. Local government is the last bastion of public trust, really? And can we maintain that by putting processes in place that protect it, even if the outcome is a somewhat higher cost or a slightly slower service delivery? Or can we spend a little more to maintain our service level? Again, not the same outcome, but the process integrity is there. When we go from that discussion, somehow that becomes an accusation about someone's motive or worse yet, their character. Someone feels like they're getting called a crook, right? Those are fighting words. And so we fight. Is that a fair?
Yeah.
So one of the ways we could be civil is to mind that transition, right? I mean, can we check ourselves to make sure that a statement about philosophical priorities doesn't turn into an accusation about motives or character? As you think back about the times when these meetings became something that you weren't proud of afterwards, was that at the heart of it? Or was there something else in addition? This was in the heart of some of it because I saw it on video. What other things get us there?
Well, besides it being accused of, the city clerk leaving on like because of me,
Which was an accusation, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
which I disagree with vehemently. When Chris went out and put a lease agreement on our agenda for a vote, not for discussion, but for a vote that night without anyone else ever knowing about it. And he used the term, you took it upon yourself to do that when we didn't authorize you to go out and accept a lease, to have it voted on. And we tried to do I made a motion to table it until we talk about whether we want to do this. That was declined. Abe, I think, made a motion to have a discussion but not vote that night. That failed as a motion also. That's really what started, that was the whole reason why we're having this tonight, is that I went to our city attorney and said, how can a mayor or city council member do that without it being authorized to go out and do that and have a vote that night? That was the reason why I have to have this workshop or this work session.
I think that was one of the things that I became aware of when I came out here. So yes, it was on the list. I don't think it was the only reason we're here.
No, but that was the reason why I went to Steve and I went to the city attorney saying, this isn't right. I wanted to do something and they recommended that we have a facilitated workshop to talk about this. That was the issue that started it for me.
So let's talk about that as another kind of case study of where, was that an in civil discussion? Was that
I thought that was civil.
Yeah, I don't think there was in civil discussion.
It was frustrating, but still.
I think your facts are wrong on it, because I didn't go out and solicit it for a lease.
But you-
A resident offered it to us.
I know.
Yeah,
but
well,
we put it on
the
agenda
facts
for a
are,
vote. We put it on the agenda for a vote, Chris.
everything that's on the agenda is open for discussion.
But that's not how it was framed in the agenda item. It was
But
for a vote.
But
And then
that's,
we asked
every
them,
item that's on the agenda is open for discussion.
but when we asked to have it changed to a discussion, it was voted down also. So we didn't know that we weren't gonna vote for it until the very end, when it was finally tabled.
Mayor, can I ask, was it on a consent agenda or was it an agenda item?
Regular agenda.
Okay, so it was brought up for discussion, but the discussion wasn't adequate. And the motion to table it failed.
Right. It said, we're gonna vote tonight on this lease.
Okay,
It was a vote, it wasn't a discussion. We usually say in the agenda items, this is for a vote, this is for discussion only. We usually say that.
okay.
And when we-
So to be fair, there is a section that says recommended action. It doesn't mean this is the action that council will take. After discussion, many times our items, go one way or another, or it can be tabled or voted down. So it wasn't, I wasn't telling people this is how we should vote.
Well, I was very worried that night that it was gonna be voted 3-2, that we were gonna go through a 5-year lease. When we hadn't even given it some, plus we had this citizen advisory committee that's working through these issues, and it kind of like. We went through the back door on them too. We didn't even wait for their workshop that was supposed to happen 3 weeks after the meeting, so. To me, that was the issue that
Good.
put me over the edge.
And so I want to get at what put you over the edge. Was it that it felt like the issue was railroaded? And the reason for that was because it came up because of the way it was characterized on the agenda?
Because we had three people that wanted to do it. They said that night they wanted that lease, they wanted to do the lease, and it was supposed to be put to a vote. It didn't get to a vote, thank God. But that's the way it was framed, and it's my understanding that a city council cannot put something on the agenda for a vote until it's been discussed, like in a previous session. When Eric Johnson was here, our former interim city administrator, he would coach me and say, Bill, you can't do this. You can't put this on the vote. We have to first talk about it. It's just like bringing you on, Chad. I wanted to like have a vote. We need a facility. We need to have a workshop. Nope, I had to have it on we had to have it on the agenda for a discussion first to see if the full council wants to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, and that night I felt like that lease they were bringing it to the city council for a vote.
Other thoughts about that experience? Or to learn from, that's my goal.
From my perspective, it's just like any other item. This is, you know, something that put on the agenda. Here's an opportunity. We know we have a problem. Here's a solution. I feel leaders bring solutions. I brought a solution and it was open for discussion.
It was one thing, if it was if it was gonna be a discussion, it should have been said, it was a discussion. It wasn't up for a vote that night.
Is it a general principle that you don't vote on things that have not been discussed in a prior meeting?
Well, the consent agenda items we don't discuss.
Good point. And so you can pull something off the consent agenda
Yes.
to discuss it if you want to.
There's often items that the first time they hit the agenda, voted on that night,
Okay, so it is a norm.
all the time.
Okay.
Generally, most of the items.
Give me an example. I'll give you another example.
There's a lot of them that go on there before without discussion. The problem is it was one of the top 4.
Right, one of
It was
those.
one of those.
Right, okay. It was a
And
hot.
you can't spring that on there. In fact, I had a conversation where you can't have an open meeting, but I had a conversation with Steve. I said, please pull that. Because that's gonna be a disaster in that meeting.
Okay.
And what I heard back was, no, we're gonna move forward with it.
All right. And it caused stress and discord. Put it in retrospect, knowing that this was a hot button issue, is there, and I don't know, is there a better way to approach hot button issues for discussion?
You know, maybe fairness. I mean, maybe we could have worded it differently on the agenda and had a discussion. You know, made it more clear that it was more of a discussion. Just, I mean, like any other item on the agenda. It's
And we
open for
tried to do that in
discussion.
the meeting though, Chris. We tried to change it to a discussion and it was voted down.
But there was
So
no
we weren't
reason
gonna
though.
vote on it.
There was no reason to motion to change it. We could have had the discussion right then, Bill. I mean, that's for
But that's not
anything.
what was on the.
We could have had it, but everything, Bill, we have on the agenda is open to discussion, right? I mean, is there anything that you don't feel is open to discussion on our agendas?
It's open to discussion and then there was gonna be a vote. That's the way it was framed. And it shouldn't have been a vote that night because it was never brought up. It was never talked about. There was so many open issues with it. To have it on the agenda as a vote that we're gonna go ahead with it. I thought it was wrong. I'm gonna bring up another example that I thought was wrong. There was a June 5th letter that went out to the county commissioners about the city wanting to take over the responsibility for the ditch 4, which is up there. That was never talked about. Sending a letter to the county was never talked about us taking over the responsibility, never. It was brought up in Steve's weekly update letter after the letter already went out. So it already happened. And to me, that's something that we should have talked about, in my opinion, before the letter was even, I'm sure I would have lost because I always lose that 4-1. But at least it would have been talked about before the letter went out there. That's another example where we need to talk about these things before they happen. We have to give him authorization to send that letter. And I don't know who drafted the letter. I'll be perfectly honest. I look at properties of PDFs and it was your letter. At least you were the owner of the property in the PDF, the info. You guys know how to look at that. That happened this summer too, and that kind of like, that was before the edge, but it was getting me up there.
Well, and I don't know this, but there are some decisions that are solidly management and operational decisions. If Steve decides that he wants to switch office supply vendors from Staples to Office Max, as long as it's within budget, he should not seek council approval to do that.
This is a biggie though, taking over.
And that, it seems like this is not that. This seems like this is strategic in its scope and in the sense that that you could incur real cost and liability from taking on the maintenance of that ditch.
Correct.
Okay, do people agree with that principle? That the ditch question is a question that should come before council, not something that should be handled just by staff? All right, we agree, do you agree with
Yeah.
that as well?
No.
You don't, okay, you believe that the ditch issue is operations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did the letter come from you though, or who drafted that letter?
He drafted that.
Pete no, okay, so who gave direction to Pete to draft the letter?
I did.
And then who gave you direction to draft the letter? How did you know that the city wanted to take responsibility for the ditch?
That came from the group, but the mayor was part of that group, but that was Pete and myself and the mayor and Shane.
See, and that's.
That actually went back, but the ditch thing went way back to,
That was a couple of years ago,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
The ditch thing started, Kathy was here at that time.
yeah.
But if.
And that was long time ago.
Okay, but if that letter went out because you, Peter, and Chris had a conversation to send that letter out before the full council said, send that letter out, to me, that's a problem because it's not a Staples example, it's a long-term, long-term commitment that we're making that could cost money.
But I don't think that the letter committed us to anything.
No, but it put it out there that we might be interested in taking over that. We didn't even talk about it. We talked about it after the letter went out. And I think it should have been talked about before the letter went out. Leroy's shaking his head. I know you disagree with me, and that's okay.
We've talked about this ditch for 3 years, 2 years now. Before you got on the council, we've been talking about this, so. We always leave it to the attorney, we make a motion or the attorney's gonna write a letter or do whatever, so to start pointing fingers is a little crazy, so anyway.
I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just telling you what happened and why I disagreed with that process or the way that worked out.
Anything we can learn from that? I mean, one is, it sounds like it was a settled matter before, and staff was acting on the guidance of a prior council.
That wasn't the first letter being sent to the council.
No,
There was other letters, other communication that long passed on to the county on this in that same direction.
that we were gonna take over.
No, that we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that committed us to anything, Bill. It was, we wanted to have the discussion to find out, and the difficult piece about bringing it to the council is if the county is unwilling to even listen to our requests that a council may direct staff to do. Those things are more exploratory to get people to the table without committing us to anything. Those things happen all the time before things come to council.
The thing is, the county didn't decide to abandon the ditch until this year. So I don't know why you were talking about the city taking over the responsibility of the ditch if the county never asked us to take it over or never thought about abandoning it.
Well, but their indications that they were gonna abandon it started years ago.
I know that. But you didn't pull the trigger on it. They,
If I could point out.
Yeah.
During the meeting that we had with the county, and you were part of that. It became evident to me that the county had been actually dispersing ditches all over the county.
abandoning ditches.
They're abandoning the ditches, they're getting out of the ditch business. So, this, it was very obvious that they were doing that, because part of it was they were talking about being able to use funds from other abandoned ditches to take care of our thing. So, I think that it was pretty obvious to me that the county doesn't want to be in a ditch business.
I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
I just had an issue with a letter going out before the full city council had a chance to talk about whether we wanted to accept responsibility of the ditch. Now, I'm saying that, it's 4-1 vote that I'm the only one that doesn't want to assume responsibility of it, but it would have been nice to talk about it before the letter went out. Because
That's kind of accusatory, isn't it?
I would have liked, it's a preference. the preference, I'd like the council to, on big issues, that we all get a chance to talk about it, not just Chris and Steve and the city attorney. If Chris wasn't involved and it was the city attorney and Steve, that's a whole nother issue, but I would hope that Steve would understand that taking on something that we don't know anything about and it's gonna cost us money, that it would be brought to the full council before that letter goes out. That's my point. I'm sorry if I'm being accusatory, I'm just telling you, I'm trying to be candor in my thought process on it.
I don't know that we're gonna learn more from that example. Besides, we do have a difference of opinion about what differing views about the history of the issue. And different preferences for how things come to council. But I think one of the things that we want to note is, as we decide on governance, we are going to want to err on the side of inclusion of issues, except when they are clearly management or operational issues.
Correct.
Is that fair to say? All right.
Yeah.
The other thing I think we can learn from it is there is a need to create a high level of clarity about decisions that have been made and to track in some sense the history of decisions, because I think that has also led to some frustrations from time to time about things coming back up that were previously decided, that sort of thing. So I think that's a big part of what I want to learn from this exercise is, when do we get hot? When do we not function at our best as a council? And what I hear from it is, when there's a hot button issue, when we go from a difference in our priorities for governance or the way we believe governance should be done to an accusation, when our meeting processes are not as explicit as they could be, and an opportunity for clarity of, and I want to say, let's also say, inclusion of issues for discussion. So let's build on this, because the reason that having good meetings matters is twofold. One, it leads you to the best outcomes and the best policy. Good, robust discussions where all views are heard and taken seriously, but which don't get stuck in that divergence. A good discussion often diverges for breadth of ideas and then converges on a unanimous or a majority or a consensus view. Unanimous is unanimous. It means we all proactively agree with it. Majority speaks for itself. Consensus is a different thing. You rule by majority, but if you can also achieve consensus by modifying the proposal, that has value for the strength of the council. Consensus means we can all live with it. And so we will seek unanimity and drive to majority, but tyranny of the majority occurs when the majority is inappropriately insensitive to the needs of the minority on a consistent basis, and it leads to an alienation. Tyranny of the minority occurs when minority uses process or obstructionist techniques to prevent the city from moving forward based on a majority vote. So the way we prevent those injustices, even though they are maybe procedurally sound, they lead to resentments and they cause us to have crappy council meetings. The way we avoid those things is by really listening to each other, but also being willing to converge and being open to finding ways to find the closest thing to a consensus we can before we're done. Does that seem reasonable as a process? So the reason this matters is because the other reason this matters, in addition to finding the best policy solutions, is that the way you conduct yourself affects public trust. Residents and other stakeholders in the city are watching. Prospective residents are watching. Should I buy a house here? I don't know. I mean, there are suburbs in the Twin Cities where their housing stock has materially been affected by a perception that their government was not functioning. In multiple ones. And And that's the last thing we want. Likewise, although you would prefer to remain residential in character, some businesses can also provide a very salutary benefit to your tax base and can contribute to the vitality of the community. And you don't want those people to be nervous about the health of the council. Likewise for employees. There's a market for good public sector employees and you want to attract them. And likewise, you want the best people to want to run for office, whether you agree with them or not. We want the best people to run for office and to serve on your commissions and to volunteer at things. I don't know how concerned you are about real estate developers, your relationship with them. In some of the communities I work with, your reputation among developers is really important. I don't sense that that's a big deal. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
That's not a hot.
I don't think
That's
it's
why,
a button.
yeah, I mean, want to
It's
exclude
not-
it because,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's right now, organic growth in the southern part of the city is it's actually, very desirable, so. I think the city's at a strong point of that, right? It's not, some cities are out there advertising for development. Credit River is not advertising for development, because I think there's no need to, we're not in a hurry.
right,
It's happening at a snail's pace already, so.
so these are good reasons to have good meetings, I think. Fair to say?
Yeah.
So what principles can help this council overall beyond the meetings, how you conduct yourself generally? And I'm gonna propose these principles, because I've worked with them for a long time and I've developed them with some experts. Policy governance, and we'll talk about what that means. It means that staff and council play their respective roles. You act with one voice, ultimately, that's after that convergence, and we can talk about, that's why attending to the needs of the minority is important, because it makes it easier for everyone to speak with one voice in part. Due consideration of expertise and experience. This didn't happen here, I worked with a city engineer who said, there are two ways to understand hydrology. I learned about how to manage stormwater flow based on a master's degree and 30 years of experience. Or I could have been elected to council, because our council members think they know a lot more about stormwater than I do. His tongue was in his cheek, but the point was made. Right?
Mhm.
Policy steadiness and predictability, transparency in the way we're making decisions, lends a sense of legitimacy, and it also allows people to plan and live their lives. Because they know what the city's gonna do, and governing for all, which is a challenge. What that means here, it means something in every community. Here, that probably means for the northern part and the southern part of the city, but other differences as well. So so there's the list. Let that sink in for a second. We're gonna go touch on each of these. Thoughts or comments about that list?
Makes sense.
Good?
Well, one clarifying question,
Yeah,
one
please.
voice does not mean like groupthink.
Certainly not. I'm glad you asked that question, and we'll get to it, absolutely. Policy governance, this is the Carver model, it's well regarded. This also works in, looks an awful lot like a corporate governance structure. The board is up here, see that? City here, residents, council, boards and commissions, city administrator. And below are the directors and city staff. In your case, very limited city staff and contractors, right? So the city council is establishing the ends. What should the city be doing? What is the budget? High level. Providing direction and delegating implementation of the city, I should say, administrator, and holding the city administrator accountable for results. The city administrator is responsible for making sure that the city does what the council guides it to do. And that's in part why having someone on both sides of the line, as you are, Mr. Schomer, is complicated. Not necessarily wrong, but complicated, right? It also gives you one person to hold accountable. I mean, the difference between plan A and plan B is as you know, that you are actually the employers and your job is to provide day-to-day oversight at the director level. But the function of this is the same. So policy governance is important and it should lead us to ask the question, am I micromanaging? It should also lead us to ask the question, are we as a council providing adequate guidance so that is our guidance specific enough so that our wishes expressed on behalf of the community come through? Here's the one voice principle. It doesn't require that city council decisions be unanimous. It means that after we've had a fair process and differing opinions were expressed, the city council should make a decision which represents the city's position. What it means is you don't have 1/5 of the power. The power still resides with the group. And you need a majority to provide direction, and consensus again is also has value. This means that you as a council member or mayor can ask the city for information that will help you make decisions. But if you're encumbering city resources to do that, that really is a council action. If it's more than the normal course of business, hey, could I see a breakdown of this? Or could I see the options that you considered? If we're getting down into why did you pick Staples over Office Max, I'd be skeptical about whether we're still at the governance level. If we said, I noticed that office supply expenses doubled this year in the budget process, can you explain that? And office supply expenses aren't doubling, but I can tell you, insurance expenses, I mean, city expenses, motor pool, fleet expenses are expanding. It's extraordinary. But that's the line for when you act as an individual, it's asking the city for information to support your participation on council. When you're acting as a council, it's giving guidance, and that can include a material request, like I want to change the way we're providing the budget spreadsheets. No, that needs to come from the council. But could I have some additional information on this? That's probably reasonable. And I think it's important that we trust the city administrator's judgment to say, hey, we have very limited resources. I can give you half of that for almost no time. The other half is going to take hours and hours. Can we negotiate? And I think that's a legitimate negotiation that you want him to undertake on your behalf as a steward of your resources. Fair enough? So that's the one voice principle. Once we've made a decision, it's the council's decision. Doesn't mean that you are honor bound to stand behind it. You can say, I voted against it, but as a council member, you should also be able to say, and this is why the majority prevailed, and be able, as a representative of the city, to explain the rationale behind the decision. Even as you can say, this was a problem for me for these reasons, to make that principled argument, but to speak for the city as well. I think that's an important duty of an elected official. I mentioned due consideration for expertise and experience. Really is about trusting staff and recognizing that they're committed to the success of the city. And their recommendations and their background statements should be created very carefully. There's time put into them. They should never be arbitrary. Or if they are, then you should explain that we don't believe that this is a consequential decision, and so we believe that either is equal, and we recommend X. But good recommendations, good staff work represents a significant investment, and staff needs to be open to feedback on process improvements. Because they're not the only stakeholder in the game. Look like you're thinking about that.
I'm thinking about staff and their specifically Steve and his communication with the mayor. They have weekly calls, right?
Fairness, he's offered that to everybody.
And those calls should not be the mayor directing Steve to do anything, right? It should be more so that Steve should be updating the mayor on what's happening.
The only friendly amendment I would offer to that would be if the mayor needs something in order to convene the meeting. That would be a direction that the mayor could give in his role as convener of the meeting.
Sure.
Let's make sure that the agenda includes this addition. But beyond that, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like we could ask him to add something to the.
100%.
But it's not like directing him to,
I want you to look into this for me.
yes, go out and find a lease for the city.
Hypothetically.
Okay. So that's, I wanna confirm, that's not happening.
That is not,
Okay, thank you.
Typically, what happens is Wednesdays, Steve has a staff meeting. And he just lets me know what they talked about.
See, okay, that's a great point. If he's telling you that, shouldn't the whole council know that? And he sends us a weekly update on Fridays, that's where I get my information from. Why is it going to you first?
Again, Steve has offered to meet with, to have that call. He has an hour in the afternoon. He drives home. Steve and I happen to drive home. We have about the same drive. And we take advantage of that to station. He's offered to do that with everybody.
I had conversations with them.
Mhm.
Very helpful.
I do actually work with another city manager presently who 3 council members meet with him every other week. That's just the template that they've chosen, and the other 2 don't. And they're all equally constructive. It's not factionalism at all, it's just different governance styles. You know, some people want that, so that may be something to implement.
I guess if he's doing weekly updates, what's the purpose of having a weekly call? That's been my point. I mean, if he's just regurgitating things on the phone and then sending a written, the same information, why do both?
Then I guess it's your right not to participate in one, Bill.
You have weekly calls too with him?
Not every week.
I don't, yes, I call him every now and then, but it's not routine. And
I mean, the reason not to do it is if you believe that it was a material burden on the city administrator's time. If it was a drag on his schedule, and that doesn't sound like it is.
and I'm trying to be cognizant of his time and not bother staff members, because I was accused of. With the city clerk meeting, was because of my interactions with her, even though I don't agree with it.
Sure.
So I've tried to not bother staff at all.
I think that's a specific part of the city administrator's job. That's why he's at the, this point in the thing.
Right.
His job is to serve you. And in fact, to make sure that staff is doing everything it can, I make the joke, Karen feeding of a city council. So some city councils are require higher maintenance, or some elected officials want more from that city administrator within reason. And a weekly meeting is well within the norm as I experience it. It really is, particularly with the mayor. Because the mayor, while you are one of 5 votes, you're the titular head, you're the ceremonial head. You're all elected at large, correct? Yeah, so that's a difference. That means that all of you have that to some degree. Any resident is just as likely to reach out to any one of you as to the mayor.
Yep.
But it's something to watch and make sure it doesn't become burdensome, but it's within the realm of the norm that I see. That some council members and most mayors want to have a weekly touch point with the city administrator, not with the rest of staff. Maybe during the budget period with the city administrator involved, the finance director, sometimes we'll get involved in some of those things. We gotta be careful with open meeting laws that it doesn't become a serial meeting. It's not, it's a bilateral discussion that differs with the content of each discussion is different. Yeah. Is it fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do consider steadiness and predictability. I feel like we're about to do a Law and Order. The justice system. Judges make decisions in part based on stare decisis. to stand by things. Now, you are not held to that standard. But the reason for it is really important. People organize their lives around what they think the law is gonna say. They buy property because they think they're gonna be able to do something on that property, right? They just, they invest based on these things. And so residents and business operators looking at Credit River as a potential home make consequential decisions based on city policy. And so it's important that city policy be steady and consistent, not unchanging, but the logic and the strategy should be articulated. I think one of the strengths that you have as a city is, and I printed it out for everybody, your values and vision and mission. These provide a basis for this steadiness and predictability. We're dedicated to preserving the rural character of our unique community, embracing our natural resources, open spaces, parks and wildlife, our neighborhoods, rural residences, and our agricultural lands. We recognize the need for thoughtful planning that ensures a safe and secure community in which our residents are proud to live. We value collaboration, prudent and transparent leadership that reflects the needs of our community. And the vision is to build a thriving community where those features exist. And your mission is to preserve the rural character, foster transparent and accountable government, and ensure sustainable and thoughtful growth that enhances the quality of life for all residents. So that provides a basis for steadiness. It doesn't preclude you from considering any given measure, but it is important, I think, as you make policy, to be steady, clear, predictable, and transparent. And that governing for all. This is where we get into the question of, when do I simply carry a view? When do I carry a view and add it to the mix and it changes? And when do I not carry a view and explain why? Because the council, particularly as you're all at large, serve the entire city. We as human beings have a tendency to unconsciously amplify that which is closest to us. The most persistent voices, the most emphatic voices, and the voices to which we are naturally sympathetic. And so this doesn't mean we should ignore people under these circumstances, but we should be mindful of those particular biases as quasi-legislators, as makers of policy, and be willing to balance and say, I know you feel very strongly about this, but I think there are 6 of you. And this affects thousands of people. And so we need to make that decision. And to avoid being manipulated by a vocal minority. I have worked with council members who were allowed themselves to be manipulated to the degree that they were receiving texts on the dais telling them how to respond in the debate. And that's really not a good look. I don't think that any of you are subject to that, but that's not hypothetical, and it's not an isolated incident either. People sometimes get a hold of you as elected officials. In bad examples, I have had to talk to city directors who've gotten in the habit of going out for drinks with particular council members on a regular basis, and have had to say, there's an appearance of impropriety here. It's becoming a problem with respect to your relationship to other directors and the city administrator. It's becoming a problem in the eyes of the public. You're harming that council member's ability to advocate for your budget because it looks like he's in the bag to you. It's not good. So these are things to be really cautious about. Good, and these are not bad people. These are not scumbags. These are not crooks. These are good people who fall into a bad pattern. And so, how do we demonstrate that we hear our constituents? This is directly. How can we most effectively engage with the constituents who holds views that are at odds with an action of the council? And how do we influence public opinion? And these are not hypothetical questions. We're about the halfway point. Should we take a 10-minute break and then come back and have some discussion about this?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Billy need our water?
I'm good, thank you.
No, I'm good.
Jay? Jay?
Here.
Yes. This is my place.
I just told him he had to go use the restroom. I told him, "Well, get there before the sun."
Get dry.
I don't know if I should.
Oh, here.
Oh, okay, are there more?
Yeah.
You're out out west, Lane and I went to, on there before that. Okay, so. Wasn't in your
Lifesaver?
in good shape.
Oh, I got it done, thank you.
Thank you.
We drove in there. Oh, it was beautiful. We had two days of thing along very. Yes.
January 11th to 17th, Perfect Creek, which is solid. Down there.
Yep.
Yeah. I used to be. I know the people are from Salt Lake. Right? Is that the best you can do? Over. That's a real nice.
You guys have a good Christmas?
No,
Yeah.
Stay
home.
Hey, Tom.
Same.
You know, we got to use your city.
I have three big boys with influenza all week at home.
They went from where?
Influenza.
Influenza.
Yeah.
The flu, right?
No,
Oh, I heard it's a bad season for flu, it's a bad.
yeah,
So it was.
we were also there. Yeah, puking and gross and they're better now.
Yeah.
They tried to explain it to the boys, oh.
So, it wasn't great.
I think the stuff is advanced. Hazards advanced. You can't always do that. Yes, it has a different.
Yeah.
We had very.
Not saying that codes, yes, even so he draws a vote.
You haven't heard any other misplaced volume?
Someone came in today and said that they plowed, in a cul-de-sac in front of someone's driveway. But, they're pretty sure that they're snowbirds and they're not in town, so I checked with Bill.
Could be a contractor for.
Yeah, but otherwise I've heard nothing but good things this year, so.
They did a nice job with the hills and.
Yeah.
It turns around and be.
Came out and they hit it early.
Yeah.
Which they really need to, or if they didn't, it's something that they would start to roll.
Yeah, and the other one I heard was on Deer Run Court, was they got really thin, but they went back and.
Quiet down.
I never heard anything else.
It just leaves snow on there. If you put that bottom blade, you'll get it afterwards.
What was the problem? Well, the problem was.
It's not all the way down.
Gallagher didn't follow.
Right,
So then it got packed down, so then you pack down part, then he comes through and he blades. You make blades and it just kind of gets rides on top of it, so then you have essentially it leads to what's on the surface. Hard. And what he was saying, you get a belly blade, it goes underneath the truck. And then you drop it down and a spray can, you know, in that neighborhood, it almost scraped the rest of the overlay. I mean, we could do the same thing. And go through and just.
It sounded to me like somebody's car was. So I drove around and it's over the back. It's empty.
You know, plus they put.
Yeah. So that still so well.
So, yeah. It's just the thing about the salt, the salt. But a couple of days.
Are they on the mountain?
That's what.
Right here, what they are.
And it's like today.
You look quite a bit earlier today, and then it's a little bit. When you started out in.
Yeah.
Turn around.
That's all. It's.
You gotta get that.
Right. Yeah. He was.
But we all heard him around. He's dying today, but. Exactly.
You know, I mean, he said he had 2 construction outfits. Yeah. I'm gonna try to do some.
2 of them were.
Yeah, well, one of them just had 100. But it's just, you know. It's pretty high. It's like. Yeah.
But I would think that we're gonna tell.
I'm very happy. Going in the snow, that's cost us 30 tax. I also like, you know, say, hey, we're just gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a colleague that opened it up to some young kids, you know, they all went back to sleep, or they only go for another night's sleep. They're getting
Yeah. So you should have like yourself. Till 6:30, most days, so 7 sleep to like 6:30.
Oh, wow.
Just depends on what marches.
Yeah, right.
Get through it. Yeah, with the power, sorry. It's, but more to be able to figure. Oh, case here, on this way.
They're supposed to go, put it on zero. Like the weekend after.
It was looking like it was.
It's probably Thursday, Sunday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no fun. It's easy, right?
My place is about.
You guys ever did this one?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so just a lot of.
Yeah.
There was, same thing.
We hosted my media, so, yeah, we hosted our big family.
We're. You must just.
We do Christmas Eve.
For the stuff. I just would like that.
Should we get stuck in the blizzard?
We missed it, we're fortunate. We split, I think my wife was down there earlier. My mother-in-law now, so. We just got work today, the other part, assisted living apartment is opening up in Village, so.
Oh,
The house is amazing. Gonna be sad.
yeah.
She went down early, but neither was gonna blizzard.
Not fun, especially the distance. Yeah,
You don't want to.
yeah,
She's in Vermillion.
okay,
Straight southeast.
yeah, yeah. It's not too bad, 3.5 hours,
No, 5.
5, okay.
About 4 to Sioux Falls, well, I'm also gonna say.
Oh, I was gonna say, boy, I used to go to Sioux Falls for work all the time, and I 3 on the nose.
Yeah, no, I get, from here, I get to go Sioux Falls in 3 minutes.
Yeah,
4 for miles.
yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I used to do that, I'd go down and back in a day, like leave us, 5 o'clock in the morning, get there by 8. Take care of business at the location, leave by 5 o'clock to home back by 8, and like. It's a grind, but sometimes it's just kind of like, sleeping home bed is kind of nice.
No, it is.
Yeah.
I've got a client in Fargo already. That's the far range of my day trip.
Yep, yep,
It's multiple days. It's
yeah,
a long day to drive all the way to Fargo.
that is,
Work and then drive.
yep,
Especially that drive.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's boring. It's just
Yeah.
brutal.
And it's always like during winter, it's always bad.
Yeah,
It is. Even
exactly.
though there's could be no snow on the ground, but if the wind's blowing, it's picking up the dirt or whatever, and yeah, it is.
Cheese.
Man, that's crazy, they closed 35 from Albert Lee to Ames.
Right.
Yeah, from sun to noon through to Monday morning even, it was still closed. Yeah, And for all those people that still get the paper version of Star Tribune, the first day when it was printed in Des Moines and they couldn't get it north.
Yeah, what, 35 shut down for
Yeah.
2 days?
From Albert Lee to Ames, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And most of the neighborhood were heading down to Texas.
Oh.
Stuck in Albert Lee. He says, oh, luckily they let us look.
Yeah.
Big trailer. So we're venturing to head down. And luckily we had food and other stuff in there. Plugged in.
So nice. Yeah.
So they even took the truck.
So,
Oh, my.
so I don't have my gavel. I don't have my gavel here tonight, so, but it's
Planes
been,
are up.
it's been 10 minutes, so
It's been 10.
it's been 10, so let's
That's.
get our groove back on.
All right. So let's have a few minutes of discussion about this. How do you demonstrate that you hear constituents? And you're gonna carry their message forward, you hear them. How do you effectively engage when a constituent is at odds with the action of council? If we talk about one voice, there's a certain integrity about being able to represent the view of council, even if your own view differs, and you can express that, but, and then what are the ways that you influence public opinion? Let's start with the first. I mean, how do you demonstrate that you hear your constituent?
Like just taking a call or responding to an email, that just shows that you heard it, period. Whether or not you agreed or not, it's the action of picking up the phone or taking an email. Replying.
Yeah, I think that's a great first step. Yeah, I mean, you can go a little bit further and ask follow-up questions about their position and have a continued discussion with them.
I've brought things to city council meetings that I've taken from what I hear from residents. I agree with everything else that we have said.
Good. Additional thoughts? No? All right. How about, what's the most effective way to work with someone who's feels like you've done wrong as a council?
Give it to the administrator. It's his job to take that beating.
Perfect.
Me personally, I do my best to communicate why the decision was made. And whether they agree with it or not, you can only explain the rationale for it. They
Mhm.
may never agree with it, but.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, right? I mean, you gotta say, hey, here's what the council looked at it to make this decision, and here's some of the laws and statutes that govern that position, which a lot of times, conveys us to make a certain decision is, statutes, laws, and try to get them to understand that a little bit. It doesn't always happen, to Bill's point, right? I mean, it's, often that's a point where a resident's a bit emotional about something
Sure.
at that point.
Back when we were a township. We'd swing over, and we'd have a beer, and talk about it. But I was told we can't do that anymore, so. No, we're city. That's it, just.
I think it was just as bad as when we were a township as we're a city. There's no laws that differentiate there.
Yeah, for their point, just to show up, to
Mhm.
show them that, you care, talk to them. A lot of times you can. Get them settled down if they're all riled up, but. Sometimes it's
Listen.
impossible,
Sometimes you just need to listen.
I would argue that the listening is maybe the most important part. I have never persuaded anyone of anything without listening to them first. I will share a framework for persuasion that's highly ethical, and I mean that because it tends to demonstrate respect and it tends to build relationships while it may change minds. And part of the way that you do that is by being open to having your own mind changed in the discussion. And in fact, I think that listening is at the heart of this. I could spend our precious time together asking what great listening looks like, and you would give us all the same answers that other people do. Eye contact, although that's culturally dependent to some degree. body language, responding, asking clarifying questions, following up. We all know what great listening looks like. Except the state of the art in listening is something is horrendous, I would say. We have become terrible listeners. So listening, if we know what good listening is, what makes it hard? What makes it hard to listen?
Failure to adhere to the principle.
Right. I know what to do, but I don't do it, right? That's part of it, yeah. What else makes listening?
You have to be open to what you're hearing.
You have to be open to what you're hearing, which is hard if I disagree with it. Yep. We carry distraction devices along with us. I mean, they call this a communication device. I'm not sure if that it contributes or inhibits good communication. I mean, it distracts us. And even if it's off or silenced, when it buzzes, I feel this incredible temptation to go. You know, even though this is the most important thing I got going on. What else makes listening hard? One of the things that makes listening hard for me is cynicism. I get cynical. There you go again. Right?
You're questioning my rationale for doing something.
Thank you. Right. When I feel challenged or questioned or accused, sort of questioned, challenged, accused. That makes it real hard for me to hear anything. I get defensive right away. It's absolutely true. I am an ethicist by education and a consultant. I face a great deal of cynicism brought about by everyone else who calls themselves a consultant. Certainly not me, I know, right? But I don't ask a cynic to become a true believer. I ask a cynic to become skeptical. I don't want you to just accept at face value. I want you to challenge me. I want you to be open, though, to my meeting that challenge. And I have to do this for myself too, because I work. I can tell they're lying because their lips are moving. There they go again, right? And I challenge myself to become skeptical in that case. Well, how could they demonstrate this? What could I learn from this conversation? And one of the things I try to remember is that everyone has got more than one story. I have done leadership development work in jails and prisons. And one of the things that really good correctional officers have taught me is no one is just the worst thing they ever did. They're more than that. And likewise, the vilest person I know is capable of insight and goodness. And the best person I know is capable of silliness, foolishness, and all kinds of vice, right? I mean, we are complicated. And when all else fails, I try to remember that. And that can help us to have better interactions with people generally. It can also help us to remember these character traits or exhibit these features. When I'm going into a difficult conversation, I want to go in there with courage. Courage is not necessarily bravado, but courage is command over my fear and my anxiety. It isn't the absence of fear or anxiety. In fact, without fear, anxiety, or adversity, there's no need for courage. The person who feels no fear is intrepid, but they're not courageous, right? The reason I say courage is because when I go into that conversation and the fear owns me or my defensiveness owns me, I'm not going in calm. I'm not going in able to listen. If I know, I will be candid with you. Despite the fact that I've been doing this work for a long time, I've been scared of this meeting all day. That is because I want to do a great job, because I know these are difficult conversations. I hope I came in looking calm and like I've done it before. That's not a function of
You
lack
did
of
really
fear.
good other than the beat of sweat.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, right. Dry mouth. I mean, that's why I'm right. Exactly right. Candor, and I'm being real candid, right? Candor means I'm willing to share what I really think. However, we make a big mistake often in our society. We glorify what we call brutal honesty. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Can you be compassionately honest instead? Cause brutal honest is, I know what it means. It means you're gonna be really honest even if it's hard. But let's add to that we actually care that it's hard. And let's express that to one another. I know this is a difficult conversation, and I'm concerned that you're gonna feel attacked. I don't want you to. Right? That's a compassionate can, and it's more powerful than brutal honesty. There is a surplus of brutality and a shortage of honesty in our world today. Let's contribute to the honesty without adding it down. Let's be compassionately honest. And let's be curious, because I'm sure I don't know everything. I mean, I'm sure that I don't know the whole story. And I think some of these things diminish if we can be more, a little more curious, slow it down, be a little more compassionate. The reason for the courage is not that I go and, it's that I can go and calm and able to listen. It gives me a calm. Thoughts about these dispositions as public sector leaders, as public leaders? Anything you would add or comment on? So with that presented, I'm gonna hold off on the ethical persuasion. I'm gonna hold off on that for a minute. In fact, I'm just gonna blank. What do we see as our, oh, I don't know. These are the principles that we covered, and then we talked about some communication techniques. Policy governance, one voice, so forth. What are we, I'm gonna run out of paper here, so I'm gonna grab a tab. What do we see as our, what do we do well currently as a council? And then I'm gonna ask what we could do better. No, I lent my easel to someone. That is not my handwriting, nor is that my exercise. I have no idea what that is.
Hobby, dream job, anything, memory, place, motorized vehicle.
Looks like they were throwing darts.
Does look like it really
Huh.
does. So. What do we see as our strengths? In this area, what do we do well? As a council?
I answered that question that we have, at least with Leroy, because we have institutional knowledge. These guys have been around for quite some time. Which I think is a strength.
History, Bill, history.
That's what institutional knowledge is, yes.
I've covered both of them. What else?
We all care about doing good for our citizens. It's just a matter of how to go about it. That we may differ.
Well, it'll solve the problem, just kind of in different ways, so.
Different in ways and different viewpoints. That's where the last bullet point can be a little bit of a strength and a detractor, right? Because that's the difficult one. How do you mix that? I think in general, everybody's understanding of where, how do I say this, of coming to the policies and all that in general, I don't think anybody's here to, over govern. I don't think anybody's here to, spend undue money on anything. I don't think anybody's here for any of those pieces. I think that we all have that same goal in mind. I think there's just, again, back to the governing for all and representation of different viewpoints is where that gets a little bit messy. Yeah, see how much that's gonna be the one that's gonna tear the paint off.
Yeah, I hope not.
Of all of them, right? The tape will be fine, but the post-it notes will. We'll have to get Mark McNeil back to repaint the wall.
Didn't get a deal on the paint, did we?
Do you know Mark McNeil? Oh, really?
Yeah,
For as long as he was city administrator for Savage and Mendota Heights, huh?
no,
Hmm.
no.
Oh,
Wow.
I know the name.
I bet you've crossed paths with him. He was still doing some consulting and some advising.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of his two partners that he was working with too, that, I'll have to think about it.
Alright. Other strengths?
I would say that although our levy's gone up quite a bit since we've become a city, if you take a look at our levy per capita, we're still pretty frugal when you compare ourselves to other cities our size. I mean, we don't lavishly spend.
Mhm.
You can tell.
As a council, where do we need to improve? Not taking any more chances. As a council, where do we need to improve? I mean, if we look at that list.
I think with the history, there's also a negative of that. I think the individuals that don't have the history are asking a lot of the questions that maybe historically have been answered, but we don't know it. And I feel like there's gotta be more than, we've already talked about this, so because, right, we have to take some out and write it down and historialize it.
It is now. He did,
Right.
he just plopped on ish onto.
or Storlish,
Yeah, so
whatever.
So two issues about our history. One is not everyone knows it. And the other is it can't or shouldn't keep us from deliberating today. Just because we have addressed something. Well, say when a reason exists. Good, what other? And so we have a split, so one of the consequences of that is we split 3-2 on tenure. Not necessarily beliefs.
Chad, what are you referencing to in tenure as far as,
Years on council.
okay,
it's 2 to 3.
yeah, well,
Well,
I guess either way, right? Depends on,
Right.
that's what. I was-
2 history, 3
Right.
new. That's what
That's what I was trying to clarify
Yeah.
is, yeah. Sort of, I guess 2.5, right? I mean, Jay's been involved in things over the years for,
Yeah,
25 years, but yeah.
we got a couple of ancients there. But
What other areas do we struggle with?
Communication. I don't think we're telling, and this specifically relates to the sewer and water. And what the impact's going to be if we bring that into the city. We don't. We haven't told our residents that are gonna have it up north, how much it's gonna cost them, nor have we told the residents down south who's gonna end up having to pay for it too, and then we'll never get a benefit from it. I'm assuming that, but I think it's fair to say that.
Well-
We're gonna end up paying.
I don't know that that's, I'm not sure that that's a shortcoming of council as much as a task to be accomplished.
But
As we
we've
address the
known
issue.
this for years and we still aren't doing it.
What are the thoughts of it?
Part of it is I don't think that we have all the answers yet. You know, we're still waiting on finding, you know, funding sources. We haven't made any decision to move forward yet. We haven't had that. We have the plans in place ready to go if funding comes around. We've met with the residents in those areas several times over the years. It's been an understanding since the 70s that those areas are gonna need that. It's not a new topic by any means.
Yeah.
However, I do believe there's a lot of people that do think it's a new topic because they haven't lived there since the seventies.
But-
Right, someone who
but
lived
don't
in
disagree.
2015,
Yeah.
they
Right.
have no idea of that, and I think that's where I agree and disagree. I think that some of the communication, we're too early on, we don't know the numbers. But I think that we can do a better job at saying, here's the four hairy topics that we've got in this community, and this is what we're doing to tackle them right now. So going back to historicalize it, being able to say, here's where we're at in this process. Here's why we're looking at it. Here's what we've done in the past. Here's what the current tasks are, the current investigations that we're doing, so that we can get to those numbers. But I think a lot of people finally get those numbers, and they don't understand that this wasn't just sprung on them, but it feels like it was sprung on them because they haven't seen anything else. So that's a lot of words, sorry.
I don't know, but I think it's good.
No, I think Abe, I think your explanation is fine. I think, you know, which is why, you know, when it was, you know, we've had at least 2 neighborhood meetings with the country court group.
Yeah.
Over the years, over the last several years. Talking to them about the why of the need, and you know, it's interesting when you look at that. Trying to remember when we did the first one. Must have been 2018, 19.
Maybe 16.
That was later than that. Anyway, so it's kind of like it had kind of took a similar path as a lot of our assessment projects, road assessment projects has taken, where the first one, there's a lot of why we don't understand it, we don't need it, there's no reason, it's been fine for 50 years so far, why would we change now? To the next one, it's a little bit more of, well, when and how much, and even, you know, as we met in the park out there this summer, more of, hey, any more new answers on when and how much again, right? So a lot of our road projects have always taken that same path, where the first time you go out and say, hey, your road is in need of reconstruction, right? It's going to cost you know, engineers' estimates. Here's how much we predict this assessment's going to be, and the immediate reaction is no, don't want it, don't need it, right? You know, the road can be crumbling to pieces, and every time it's always, you know. But by the second meeting, they're a little bit more, yeah, you know, now that you mention it, I look at it, and yep, the road's about cracking up and whatnot, and then they start to, you know, come in and understand. I think so. Again, the communication piece is, it has to be continual.
But it's gotta be more than just words, it's gotta be more than word of mouth, it's gotta be documented. Cause now everyone's going out to a website, they can find it, so help me find it. We're supposed to be transparent, and I would say we are transparent, but try to find anything. I gotta be a lawyer to understand the ordinances. I just wanna know, why are we doing this project? What's the benefit and what's the cost gonna be? And if we don't need the cost, it's fine, but have pictures, you know, pictures of the road, pictures of, you know, here's a septic system that's in the front, yeah, you know, those types of things help the community understand why this is a topic we're talking about.
Mhm.
And I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
I think we need to communicate the cost to the people so they can make a value judgment on deciding whether we should pursue what we're talking about pursuing, bringing in sewer and water. If the cost per assessed property is gonna be so much, maybe they wanna do something different, maybe they want to. And I know there's disagreement here, but we've never looked at, having the property owner look at, are there other options to the septic system they have in place today? I mean, the city's not even responsible for sewer and water. I mean, according to the statutes, we don't have, it's the property owner that has to do it. And if they know they can either spend, I don't know what the number is. Although I do believe you can always do scenarios. You know, various scenarios on if we get state funding or if we don't. We have enough, we have a $13 million project right now. We know the properties that are involved. And one thing we haven't done yet as a council, we haven't authorized, in order to assess those properties, we have to hire someone to do assessing on what the value is gonna add to that property. Not the value of the property, but what's gonna incrementally add to the benefit. Because that's the maximum that you can assess that property. And we need to know all those things. And I don't wanna close the door. I'm getting into the weeds of the whole thing.
It was about to.
All right, so then I'll stop, but I think we just need to communicate better with the residents and tell them that these things have to be done before we could otherwise it's gonna come in. And then they're gonna all be upset because it's gonna cost them a lot of money. And they're gonna say, you never told us this, you never told us this. And I was here for that, I think it was like 2018, 2019, where it was very crowded in this room.
Yep.
In the summer. There's a lot of upset people then, seemed like it. They didn't seem happy that night, but I don't know. I just worry that we don't communicate these big issues as well as, and I agree with Abe. It's hard to find things on the internet or on our city website. Although, yeah.
Someone noted that. What other areas do we need to work on as a council?
Did you write down transparency on any of that?
I did,
Okay,
but how does transparency differ from communication?
it's about the same thing, I guess.
I mean, open meeting law really makes this challenging, but in my day job, we have an issue, come sit down and we hash through it, right? You know, if I've got a problem with Leroy, I sit down with Leroy and I maybe bring an HR person or someone else in there and we talk about the issue. Leroy and I might walk out there and still not be friends and maybe still upset, but at least we had a conversation and it's known.
It's aired.
Yeah, and now we've got potentially some action steps. I think we have an opportunity to improve that here. We just have to maybe do it a little differently. I'm thinking back to, you know, the staff member that left, right? We have to address these issues if that's really an issue. It's not fair to council, it's not fair to the staff member, it's not fair to the residents if we don't address it. Right, and for it to come out in a council meeting is like terrible.
So what I've captured is we need better ways to hash out our issues. And there are ways to do them. I mean, to some degree, in a working session, we do have to hash them out in the public. You can, I'm not saying that you should, but you can change the level of publicness between some of your meetings and others. They have to be recorded, as I understand it, they have to be posted and open, but they don't, you have chosen to adopt the bylaw that all meetings have to be recorded. Or have to be live stream, excuse me. And that's a fine policy. But then we need ways to have those conversations with the mics and the cameras on.
What's the difference, by the way? Because that is a sticking issue between me and the mayor, right? Maybe others too. What's the difference whether we're recording it or we invite people here? I mean, we're not being transparent with our community. People work, people have families, they can't always get here. I don't understand why it's such an issue to record these things.
Well, there are costs and benefits, and the benefit that you've outlined the benefit beautifully. as maximum transparency. You've made the proceedings as accessible as possible. There is also a human tendency to act differently when we're being filmed and mic'd. It just is. I feel it. I'm fine with it. And you may reach the conclusion that the juice is worth the squeeze. Maximum transparency is worth the extra constraint on candor that it imposes. Or you may differ with that conclusion and say, I'm no different when the camera's on as when it's off.
But let me give you this example. There's 4 people out there right now that
Yeah.
can attend these things.
Sure.
If this wasn't recorded, then we're relying on them possibly to go out and tell the world what happened, and they may not have the, you know, the stories may be a little mixed up. I'm not saying he's
Not burned.
Burned.
Sounds a little accusatory.
Bill, for
He's gonna be not even the town crier as well as the sergeant at arms, right?
for 20 years, we had the same 5 people sitting in these chairs for every meeting, and they didn't miss a one, and they decided the budget every year. You know, it didn't change, and then probably, I don't know, 3-4 years before we became a city, everybody started in with this, well, we didn't know about that, we weren't told about this, we didn't, you know, and I'm like, but this place hasn't moved since 1968, and you can't.
It's another
Get here.
advantage to record though, then they can't say that they didn't.
Well, I know, that's why, you know, so.
But again, if you take it in the perspective of, it's not for decision making, right? You wouldn't make a decision there, right? It's to do what Abe was talking about, is how do we work out our differences, right? In a constructive manner where you're not feeling pressured by who's on the other end of the camera, right? And it just, it allows, I think, more openness to the discussion. And I think a lot of our disagreements would be hashed out in those settings. Now we've, over this next year, scheduled a monthly work session. Right? We don't have any topics or agendas or anything yet, but
It's amazing how quickly those will fill out.
oh, 100%, right? Everyone will, right? Because I'm sure, you know, Sue will want to start talking about budget stuff and capital projects real early in the year so that we, you know, can get ahead of budget for this year, rather than, you know, wait till the end and have to crash course on that. You know, I'm sure Steve will come up with other things that his needs and resources that he needs to talk about. And so I don't have any doubt that we'll fill them up. I just, you know, going back to the days, Leroy, when we did the workshop, and it was, you know, always open, we always had people here, but had those discussions were a lot different, a lot more constructive before the video started.
Yeah, they get a little heated, unheated,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
But, and again, the other side of it is, we can get good at having these discussions in full public view.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other side of it, and that's a reasonable side.
I think to your point, Chad, one of those steps is the orientation of what the table looks like today. If it doesn't look like a council meeting and you're facing people more than talking outward, you're talking together to people. I mean, even when we're in normal orientation, I can't see it, right? This is something different. I didn't know the side of your head looked like this, because normally you're behind Leroy, you know? So I think even the simple answer to start with is orientation of what the table looks like.
Good. So I think there's a lot to be said. The other thing is, remember, our charge with this process is to generate principles that we're gonna
Mhm.
live by. And we've touched on topics about how we communicate, about recognizing and addressing that we have differing tenure. It's more complicated than 2-3. And that our history or institutional knowledge is a complexity. Another complexity is we need better ways to hash out our issues. What other principles, what other topics do we want to generate principles on? I'm gonna recommend that we have a principle about policy governance, that we have a principle that we stay at a policy level. I mean, I don't think it's a problem today necessarily, but it's always a risk factor, particularly given how small your staff and council and how intimate everyone is. Remembering our roles and our lanes is hard sometimes.
So policy governance is related to our bylaws, following our bylaws.
It's actually related to the level at which you choose to make decisions in the interview.
The
So
funnel,
delegation.
the funnel,
Yeah,
yeah. Remember the funnel graphic,
the funnel graph,
right? Steve's in the middle of the funnel.
yeah.
Steve gets it, Steve spreads it.
I think.
I mean, the policy steadiness and predictability, actually, that got answered for me when I saw sloth and bear and the explanation about it. It's like, we are not making policy willy-nilly here. We are highly deliberative as a body. Not too fast. Probably a pretty good list. Here's what I'd like to do next. I'm gonna give you each 4 cards. I'd like each of you to write on those cards a principle that you would like the council to agree to. In light of these things, if you're looking at what we just talked about, everyone gets 4. No fair splitting up your cards so you get 8, 4. And what we'll see is we'll see overlap and we'll see differences and we'll get a starting point. I will tell you that my recommendation at this point is not to try to drive to a full draft tonight. My recommendation is let me come back to you with a draft in the next 48 hours or right after New Year's, I'll say January 2nd. And that'll give us plenty of time because our next meeting is on is it the 5th?
Mhm.
6th. If I
No, that's it. Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh,
if I email a draft, it's pretty tight. I'll turn it around as fast as I can. Yeah, and get a draft out to you for consideration, and we'll begin the next meeting by talking about that draft and reaching those.
Is it before the meeting?
This is a hollow, or
I had some.
I don't have any holiday on the 5th,
I
huh?
have the 5th as council and this on the 6th.
You had it on
Yeah.
the 6th.
Let me look.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yep.
Oh, yeah. For some reason I had backup. That was a backup date, but that's our actual.
I have the 5th as a date. We're doing it on the 6th. You can make the 6th work. 6th.
Do you wanna piggyback? Council meeting?
I'm not going to use a full 3 hours. I'm talking about maybe an hour, 90 minutes at the most.
Would that work better? Or
Depends on what we have on the agenda.
it's not super stacked.
Is the 5th our council meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
5th is the council meeting. That's what I was thinking. And
I would do the 6th personally.
Separate.
I would.
yeah,
Okay.
I think both can have significant discussion and then if we start this at 5 o'clock, we're gonna be pressured to be done by 6.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. If we start this after, everybody's gonna be looking at it and going,
we don't care.
it's past my bedtime.
The 6th worked for you.
Yeah, he
Yes,
says,
I would make it work.
So what's our?
This is my mistake. I thought that.
You're gonna have to tell us what our duties is again, or what's our.
so it was to pick 4.
I'm gonna give you 4 cards. We'll put them up on the wall just to see what the similarities and differences look like and have some discussion about it. I will take notes from that discussion and I'll come back to you promptly with a draft set of proposed shared commitments. And
So these are 4 commitments that,
you would like council members to make to one another
okay,
and to the city, I guess.
And just to be clear, are we supposed to use the things of discussion that we've written down, or it can be anything?
Oh,
Need
everybody
for-
gets 4.
Let's pass them down. So what was your question?
Do
Oh,
you have
he-
to adhere to?
Are we
the-
adhering
Yes,
to the,
No,
okay,
this is a stimulus.
Okay, good.
for
I
the,
wanna build, I wanna keep building.
perfect.
A bit when I'm starting from animals. To strengths and weaknesses, to strengths and weaknesses with respect to governance, now let's get down to a little bit more brass tacks.
to have as a commitment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for example, you could say no name calling, or you could say, we will document all major conclusions in a way that helps the public to understand what we're doing. Or you could say, I had worked with one council. Where that one of their commitments, it's in public, we will be one-faced. And what that meant is, I will not be two-faced. In particular, I will not say anything about you behind your back that I haven't said to your face first. And so that council
Too many.
adopted one face as a principle. So how would I do,
Get a refund if we don't use them all?
no, you could sell them to your partners. No, if you don't have 4, don't make up 4 for the sake of making up 4, you have up to. When you're done, you can go ahead and take them up on the wall.
Oh. Now we gotta paint both sides of it.
I think I'm gonna come out okay, I really, do.
Yeah.
I believe in those 3M adhesives.
Thank you.
But they something. Can't you? We can squeeze two more. No. We're good. We're good. Yeah.
We just waiting for me.
Yeah,
You
you're
gave,
done with your novel.
right, and I didn't use the black pencil.
Oh, that's
to be able to
fine.
read it. And you gave me an extra one, I have.
Uh-oh.
I won't.
You're a man of integrity.
Honestly.
I have sticky fingers.
Now, how are the folks gonna read those, Bill? Way back
Well, to
there.
be honest, they're all hard to read distance. I will organize them and read them all.
I'll let you read them, right?
Well, I was gonna say, none of us are clearly experts at printing these days.
My penmanship.
The keyboard thing has ruined that for everybody.
When I was part of the corporate consulting group, I hired a salesperson and she said, I will come to work with you if you promise never to write on a whiteboard in front of a client who hasn't signed a contract. I hired her on the spot. See.
Reading brings. See. I don't know if this size.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Use your phone.
That's what.
Store two?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm reading them help me out.
I appreciate it.
Lit deal.
Yeah.
What's up?
Alright.
So we get her.
Nice.
Holes in there.
Yeah.
Is it January sixth at 6 o'clock?
Pretty cool. One of the other guys is gonna go get one though.
Flip them over your glasses or what?
That's a good thing. Flips right on my, where I had all.
I don't remember where got that from, but
Andy. Door closed. That's good. Dead stock that went on this one is so far.
Yeah.
More one-on-one.
Yeah.
Drilled two holes in the door. That's
Related and. Listen to our residents.
Inch and a half down is the top of the frame. I thought of the inch and 7/8.
Oh,
It looks fine, it's just
For the entire.
not exactly the way it's supposed to be.
the bars.
Itch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's effective.
Related, yep.
Fill a whole bottle.
Eliminate individual council. Long somebody does it's not authorized.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All that's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit, it's all right. All right. So. The hot top, the most common theme or topic relates to the way we conduct debate. Bring robust debate to the table, listen for true message rather than be defensive, find ways to effectively debate different views, compassionately candid, and then talk one-on-one more, which is related. Once the decision is made, well, then I would say know the hot topics and understand the ramifications. what the ramifications are when these topics are discussed is also related to that. It'll create a little space here. These are different. Use admin more, eliminate individual council members, mayor performing city business not authorized by the full council. We are all 1 of 5. Related to the debate topic, probably stop claiming misinformation or having bad information when council members share information. It is an opinion. We each have them. So,
You want me to explain that?
I think I understand it, but does anyone have any questions about it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think distinguishing between opinions, projections, and facts is really part of the heart of it, but also not impugning another's view as wrong or unfactual when it's not a factual statement, it's an opinion.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the family around debate, and let's stick to this for a minute. Any other thoughts about other principles to guide debate? You know, while I notebook out. Pretty good.
I mean, I'm a detail oriented person, so when there's debates going on. I like working with people that can have data that backs up what their position is.
Mhm.
Not just statements that, well, we've been talking about this for 20 years and this is how it's going to be. And I'm just throwing that out. I just, you can convince me to do something if the facts prove that that's the right decision, but a statement that's just general thrown out there without any facts to back it up, it's just an opinion. And I don't know if that's what you were asking about for that middle, when you talk about debating.
Well, I'm looking for principles that we want to adopt. And I think that differentiating facts and data from opinion is one, and then trying to be fact driven, although I don't want to necessarily make that a principle so much as that can come out of the discussion.
Okay.
Here we have follow our vision and communication, be transparent with how actions will be consistent with that vision. And I have related to that, be transparent and explain history. I think this is maybe a little more internally focused to the council. This is a little more focused on the community, but I think they're in the same family.
Mhm.
Agree to honor good policy. This is a family too. Listen to our residents and the advisory committees we establish. Governing for the entire community, no north versus south. So honor our policy. Anyone want to clarify honor good policy? What does that mean? What's the opposite of that?
Create good policy and follow it, stick to it,
Okay.
adhere to it.
Okay.
What if it's bad, what if your opinion is it's bad policy, do you still stick to it?
There's actually another one up there that will go along with that. That's
Which is?
Because you said, I want to be.
So it must be one of the one voice ones, right?
Don't
Yeah.
second guess the council decision. Oh, speak in one voice when a decision is made. Don't second guess the council decision. Yeah, so really, actually, this belongs there.
Don't second guess the council decision, that's like kind of me, that scares me, that's a group
I
thing.
agree with that.
That's groupthink. You can disagree and you can explain your disagreement, but remember you said at the beginning of the session, we should something I don't do that I need to do is offer what here's his position, here's why I think. This person said this, but here's mine and here's why I disagree with this. As long as you frame it like that, I think that's okay.
Yeah, so it's second guessing, and I think avoiding groupthink is important.
And it's bring robust debate to the table.
Mhm.
Yep, right,
In
agreed.
fairness, when I wrote that, my intent was to write it as you stated in your slide, there was more of the. It's okay to disagree with you if you're the lone disagreeer, if you're the dissenter, but, put it in. Here was my position, but the council ultimately did this.
Good.
Mhm.
Do we go back to what Jay was at yours when you said follow good policy? Or I think.
Agree to honor good policy.
Agree to honor
On
good
the
policy.
policy.
Yeah.
Why did you insert the word good? Why wouldn't it just be honor policy that we've established? Because not everyone believes that all the policies were agreed to by everyone. Why wouldn't it just be follow the policy? Because you don't want to go one off and say, well, I don't agree with that policy, so I'm not gonna follow it.
Okay, so, what's wrong with us creating good policy?
Nothing.
Okay,
But okay, I was just,
no, that's,
you framed it as follow good
well, we have
policy.
to make the good policy first. Okay.
And I asked, bear in mind, I'm not copying these down and making a bulleted list out of them.
Right.
This is input, my job is to create something for you to respond to.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm having this conversation, to give me better insight, to give you something that's closer to your shared perspective right out of the box.
Mhm.
So this is a really useful discussion. I have a better understanding. Part of honoring good policy is taking the act of policy making seriously, so that we do it deliberately and carefully. And then, once we've done that, let's acknowledge that. Now, if policy could be perfectly good and also outmoded. Things change, right? And so as the community grows, as new options become available, as state laws change, we may need to change policy. That would not violate honoring our policy. If the composition and wishing the community materially change.
Well, let me amend it and add create to the beginning of it,
Sure.
so. Which is what my intent was.
Yeah, good. Transparent and explain history, follow our vision and communicate, be transparent with how our actions will be consistent with that vision. So link our actions back to the things that we've agreed on, our mission, our vision. That's part of that consistency. Listen to our residents and the advisory committees we established. Governing for the entire community. Anything else we would change there? We got use admin more. That could be a two-edged sword, but. Eliminate individual council members, mayors performing city business not authorized by the full council, we're 1 of 5. Adhere to policy governance file. Good. I think this is a great starting point. It gives me that, and this discussion gives me enough input to come back to you with something that I hope is pretty good. It won't be perfect. I don't want it to be. I want us to have a discussion to make it your own. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm trying to reflect back to you what I heard from you with whatever flavor or color commentary I can add, because I do a lot of this and I think about it. And then we'll go from there. Other thoughts about principles or shared commitments? Let me then use a few more minutes and then I'm going to close tonight with asking each person to share one insight that you've gained from our work together so far. What's one? So not yet, but a fair warning that I'm going to ask that question. I want to build on the listening piece a little bit with this ethical persuasion piece. Mr. Market, you made an important point earlier. The data is persuasive, and it is, and it should be. Good information, good data, good logic. A valid argument is an argument where the premises inherently lead to the conclusion. A sound argument is an argument that is valid and the premises are true. So you can have a valid argument but bad premises, and you get to the wrong conclusion. The logic is sound, but the facts aren't right. A sound argument has both. And there's a limitation of that, because if we just try to persuade someone with a sound argument alone and don't listen to them, very often those people will feel coerced. For example, I have very complicated business insurance because I do a lot of work in public safety and I ride along with police and fire, and I take on additional liability by virtue of being present in those environments. And I needed a high-end underwriter, and I got an agent, and this agent was extremely assertive and gave me a sound argument for why this was the right policy. Had my lawyer look it over, it's the right policy, shopped it, it's the right price. But this guy was hammering me with, either you tell me why you're not going to sign or you sign right now. And I said, I'm going to sign 15 minutes before I need the coverage.
Right.
And he said, I need you to sign right now. And so I saw it was the right business deal. I made the business deal. And then I said to him, look, if we're gonna have a relationship for insurance coverage and other financial matters, we need to change the way our relationship works, because I felt coerced, not persuaded, not listened to. You were more concerned, it felt like, with your priorities, making a sale on your commission schedule, I suspect, than my needs as a customer. And he came back to me and told me how stupid I was for believing that. So we have a different agent, same policy. But I tried really hard to work with him because he did a lot of work to get this policy underwritten. I didn't want to just cut him off. I wanted to build a relationship with him. He believed that an unassailable argument was enough. And it is to make a sale, but not to build or maintain a relationship. If we want to build a relationship, we can't just have the sound argument. We also need to approach it in a way that is attentive to the person I'm dealing with. And this is not always the case. Sometimes I don't feel this way. So the first check in ethical persuasion is internal. It's a gut check. Do I respect the person I'm engaged with as an individual with their own goals, and I care about their wishes, or do I just see them as a means to my end? I just want them to go along. I just need their help. Sometimes I just want them to go along, and if that's true, don't do this. Just go with the argument, fight it out. The other is openness. Am I open to learning something here myself? This is hard sometimes. I can feel very strongly that I'm right and still be open to being shown something else. Still be open to being shown a different argument. I might be open to learning why a reasonable person disagrees with me, but that's openness. And if I really feel that I respect the person I'm dealing with as an individual with their own goals, and I'm open to learning from this conversation, the next step is, for many people, including me, the hardest. I got to listen to them first. And that looks like this. Steve, I know we disagree. Can you help me understand your perspective, please? And I listen to Steve until I can say, all right, let me make sure I understand your perspective. And you agree that I got it. Don't have to agree with it, but I got it. I do this for a couple of reasons. One, nothing feels more respectful than being listened to. I mean, it is astonishing how powerful being listened to really is. The other reason is, by understanding Steve's position, I don't need to prove something to him that he already believes, because that feels really disrespectful. When someone violently agrees with you. Instead, if I've demonstrated that I understand Steve's position, now I can say, well, Steve, here's where we agree. We both want what's best for the city. We both want to keep the tax levy low. And those are really important principles. We both agree that the way we're doing it right now is working well enough. But here's where we disagree. I'm concerned that the way we're doing it introduces these risks and problems. And you don't seem to hold that view, or maybe you do. let's talk about that a little bit. So I take the lead by showing where we agree, and then we start to work out our differences. So we haven't gotten to the differences until we both heard one another. I'm framing my position in terms of the other person's views, respectful and attentive to them, and then we're working out our differences. It is not a magic bullet. It takes time, and it only works, I believe, effectively if we come to it with an open mindset and heart to some degree. But this is an extremely powerful way to engage with one another in debate. I have had people say, well, gee, it looks manipulative. And I don't think it is. I think it's really respectful of the other position because the other person gets to do the same thing. You know, you're not imposing views on anyone. You're listening and trying to elicit those views. Questions or comments or thoughts about that? One last thing I want to talk about. Back in 2008, in the state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker was elected for the first time as governor. And this is not a partisan statement at all. It was it led to very hot discussions about the proper role of size of government, the proper role of government services, and the nature of government employment. Really very hot discussions. And I was beginning at that point to work with public entities, and I realized, particularly public safety agencies, and I realized that we didn't have a vocabulary for having a reasoned debate about why we would do one thing or another, why we would buy a 2-axle dump truck in Public Works versus a single axle, or why we would have our own fire department versus contracting with, do you contract with Savage?
Early.
Priorly. Good department, I know those guys. Savage. And so I because I had done a lot of qualitative market research, that's how I approached this project. Set up focus groups, listening sessions with different public stakeholders, and have been using this and refining it ever since, but it's been very stable for the last 10 years or so. These are 3 interlocking values for public agencies: excellent public service, sound stewardship of resources, and fairness. This provides a vocabulary for us to have our debate out. And what this means, and again, this was market research, people told me this. What public service means is a valuable contribution to the community, leadership in establishing community priorities. This is important because you as the city know things, and this is why, to the earlier point about why it's so important to share the full story. Leadership in establishing community priorities doesn't mean putting a thumb on the scale. It means helping people make good decisions with the best available information. A fire chief knows the difference between a 9-minute response and a 4-minute response, but he or she also knows the difference between getting there in 4 minutes 90% of the time versus getting there in 4 minutes 95% of the time versus, and what the cost differences are and what the real implications are. So as experts, we need to be able to lead in helping the community establish those priorities. It also means pervasive professionalism. Follow up with look the part, and we're committed to ongoing improvement as the state of the art changes. That's excellent public service. Now, I had a city council member say to me, excellent public service sounds too expensive. Could we call it adequate public service? Wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable, right? I said, no, first of all, it doesn't inspire us to be our best, but it's built in because the second leg of this stool is sound stewardship of public resources. It's excellent at whatever level you are willing to buy and invest in. And that means that one of my clients is in rural South Dakota, northeastern South Dakota, and his church burned to the ground on Friday. Thank God nobody was in it. And he said, if we lived in the city, they definitely would have saved the church. But we know what a rural fire response is. Doesn't mean that fire department wasn't excellent. It meant they performed excellently at the level they were staffed, or they were resourced. Sound stewardship of resources doesn't mean I'm gonna spend as little as possible. It means that I can thoughtfully link what I'm spending to my mission and my priorities. I spend for what's sufficient. If I'm buying a cab ride or an Uber, I'm not gonna have them drop me off 6 blocks short to save $1, but I'm also not gonna have them take me around the block and show me the neighborhood. I wanna know what's sufficient, and that sufficiency is attentive to total cost and value. Don't be seduced by initial cost, look at total cost and value. It also, sound stewardship of resources means we maintain and conserve what we have. And it means that we're committed to ongoing fiscal improvement too. Are there new technologies that can help us cut costs? Are we doing things for the public that they no longer value and we can stop doing them? Or do less of them, or do them more slowly, right? And then excellent public service and sound stewardship of resources, I can deliver those together sometimes by exploiting someone. I could exploit my employees, guess that. I could exploit the less dense part of the community because there are fewer voters in to the benefit of the more dense because there are more voters. Or conversely, I could exploit one neighborhood to save money and distribute those goods elsewhere. In order to avoid exploitation, the third leg of the stool requires that we be fair. And fairness means justice, and it means equity. And I don't mean that in the politically charged sense of that word. I mean even-handedness. That's what I mean by equity. This slide has existed before anyone thought equity was a political word. Consistent and principled leadership. What that means is different people may experience different outcomes, but I can explain why. And it's a consistent principle that I'm applying that leads to different outcomes in different circumstances. Safety is an element of fairness. It's not fair to ask employees to do things in an unduly dangerous way because we're cheaping out on them. Adequate materials and equipment, likewise. And then these two came out of the research that sort of surprised me. Honest and open information sharing is a principle of fairness. People know that there are things you can't share, either they're not known or they are genuinely confidential, but stakeholders, residents and employees and elected officials should be able to have a reasonable expectation that if the information can be shared, it's available. And finally, appreciation for time and effort. That's not a participation trophy. What it means is sometimes outcomes matter in government. They do. But sometimes we can't control the outcomes. We also have to recognize when people really did their best, even if it was an adverse outcome. So those three principles, back up at the top, excellent public service, sound stewardship of resources, fairness, I hope can serve as a framework for some of your debates that can keep us out of the realm of accusation and can solidify the process, and it can raise questions that we can find data about. Like, what is the service level that we're going to get? Or what do we estimate the total cost to be, and what's the basis for that estimate, right? Those kinds of things. Or how does this affect all members of our community? How do we find that out? So I want to leave you with that as a content tool for your deliberations. Does it seem, I'm nervous to ask because I'm very invested in this particular piece of content, but what do you think?
Seems fair.
I think it's very reasonable.
Good. You can practice with it, and this also is good for the governance model because you can ask staff to do.
That's what I was just gonna ask, is do people use that as, like, would that be as the administrator putting together packets or staff putting together packet
Sure.
reports to use the highlights to show how it meets those steps?
Absolutely. And you can ask staff to do the same. Show us how your overtime proposal, your proposal that's gonna cost us overtime is actually giving us a level of service commensurate with the money we're gonna spend. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. So that's what I have for tonight. Our next session, will focus on the shared commitments, and I have some other questions as well. what other ways can we think about functioning effectively as a sometimes split council? Preventing what? E pluribus. How should we best characterize the relationship and interaction between council and staff? What commitments do we need? There are those commitments. And the last question I'll ask is, how are we gonna hold ourselves accountable for those commitments? And I'm gonna recommend that we simply use some common language. Look, I think we have an agreement on it, or something like that, that keeps it. It may sound like an accusation, it's actually an assertion. And it's a recognition that we do all make mistakes.
Is it similar to a code of conduct?
Um,
With clear consequences if those, that conduct
Well,
followed or no?
the clear consequences fit into the accountability. I'm not gonna recommend consequences, but we can certainly have a discussion about what those consequences would be.
Do a lot of cities have code of conduct for their councils?
They do, but what I'm proposing is closer to what most of them have,
Okay.
which are a set of agreements or bylaws. I'm working with a city next Friday, and every other year in their annual retreat, they review principles that we last revised in 2024. Actually, 2024, they didn't change them at all. They were last revised in 2022. So they go over them, and it's how are we gonna interact with staff, how are we gonna interact with one another? Some of them have that particular one has some guidelines around social media usage. That was important to them at the time. But the sanction really is, we call each other out. And that's the limitation of the sanction.
Right.
Right, yeah, okay.
Right. And there should be a process or a way to do that, right? Is that,
Yeah. Other questions about next steps? And I would estimate, please don't hold me to this, we're under 90 minutes of it. That's my guess. Unless you really want to go deeper into anything, and I'm at your service, definitely. That's Steve, I've heard, kill my margin, I love what I want to be valued.
So we're gonna
Whatever
schedule
it
the
is.
7th as well.
That's exactly. I'm in. Listen, I'm okay playing timeline chicken with a bunch of elected officials. I know you're busy. So I'd like to close.
Yeah, but it's a boring time of the year. I mean, you might not be able to.
That's what you do.
I'm gonna give the mayor the last word on this exercise, so Mr. Satterback, I'd like to start with you, and we'll go around. What's one insight or piece of learning for me?
Started with me, didn't you?
Yeah.
I would just say it's nice to get a broad look at it.
I like hearing all the others' perspectives. What I learned that I don't do often enough, if I do at all, is when I'm explaining something to somebody, I don't give the other side. Like if I have an opinion about something, I stick with my opinion and I don't explain why someone else might have a different opinion. And I think you had mentioned, give them an opportunity to decide for themselves whether you're right or wrong, or whether you agree or disagree.
Thank you. I didn't realize how important the history piece was here. I heard it in the interviews, but it didn't come out in my findings because I underestimated the differences in tenure. And upon reflection, it certainly was in the interviews. I just didn't pull it out. So that's a learning that I take away.
I appreciated the conversations, just back and forth, the open conversation.
I wrote it compassionately canon.
Good.
I think that in any part of life, but also especially here, is brutally honest is what I always say, but compassionately candid is a much better way to help explain a position and or get consensus. Just show they listen.
I like that content too. You can learn to do that correctly. It's something you have to learn, right? I mean, it's just you don't just turn a switch on that, right? But it can be part
Mr. Schumer?
Oh. Great, sorry, just because I talked in between doesn't mean we skipped you. I know you wanted out on
I was
that.
trying to block Abe.
Yeah, right.
The position at the table, you can.
No, communicate. Communication, I guess. A lot of this, you know, sit down and communicate here, talk. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, like I said in the beginning, and I think we've all kind of said this before, but in general, I think we all kind of want to get the ship guided the right direction. There's other pieces to that need to come together to get there, but and I think we've known that. I think it's just how do you bring that circle all in so we can have, you know, the candor, compassionate discussions, being able to talk about when you talk to some other people and talk about, you know, here's why the council decided this way and other people's opinions are this, and you know, all those pieces come together to get us to guiding that ship the right direction.
Ships there, the oars aren't all in water.
Start at 6 o'clock on the 6th? Good.
Thank you, Chad.
Very much.
Thanks, Chad.
I will also send these slides out in PDF form to everybody.
Oh, thanks.
Right, yeah.
Stay with pictures.
Steven?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.